So tips on how to apply Ayurveda. I'm very keen to help support that process for people. Once we know our prakriti, our biological constitution, our mental and physical constitution, and also once we know our vikriti, which is our current situation of what dosha may be in balance and out of balance, and therefore which dosha we're working more with. Once we know those things, then we look to apply the right lifestyle and the right diet based on the characteristics to help balance the dosha that we're working with. And I think it's been very, very useful for me and quite important to appreciate and to take into consideration fitting what we can change into what we can't change. So in Ayurveda, there's certain things that are set where the Vata, Pitta and Kapha energy is more for everybody at certain times of our life, which is generally 0 to puberty is when Kapha energy is more for everybody. And then Pitta time of life is from puberty to say 50, 55, maybe menopause for women, when that Pitta energy is more for everybody. And then Vata time of life is say 50, 55 onwards, where Vata energy is more for everybody. And then we have the seasons, which we can't change unless we move, of course. And so the changeable times of the year, like spring and autumn, would be more Vata. Again, the characteristics of Vata, it's very changeable. And the Pitta time of the year, probably more obviously, is the summer, is the hotter time, when the fire, the heat is more for everybody. And then the Kapha time of the year is more the winter. So this is the same for everybody. And then when we're looking to structure lifestyle and dietary changes into our daily life, looking at the times of the day is the closest one, let's say, to work with. So just to give some tips on how to work with the times of the day, very, very simple and easy things to bear in mind or to consider would be Vata time of the day for everybody, where Vata energy is more, is 2 to 6. 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and probably quite a lot of us won't be up during that time, and then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then we have Kapha time of the day, which is from 6 to 10. So this is when the Kapha, the more grounded, slower energy is for everybody, between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then the Pitta energy, the more focused, the more active, let's get this done, the more heat, would be from 10 to 2. So 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and also 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So Pitta is more for everybody during these times. So we can't change this. So we have to fit in what we can change, our lifestyle and our diet, into what we can't. That's probably quite self-explanatory, but it's an important thing for us to remember. So let's just give an example of how that how we can use that. So, and remember that if we're working, say, with Vata more, and we're trying to balance Vata, and we're trying to bring the Kapha energy more to help balance Vata, then during Vata times of the day, we've got to be even more aware of this, because dis-ease or imbalance happens when the doshas go too high. So you could think of that as layering on a Vata type energy onto another Vata energy, and then we just keep going up, and eventually it becomes very much out of balance. So I'm going to take Vata as an example. So say we're working with Vata energy more. Maybe it's the predominant dosha in our constitution, or maybe it's the current dosha in our vikriti, the current situation, that we are working with more. So if it's Vata time of the day, and let's use the 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is when this energy, and this is important to remember as well. What is Vata energy? Well, Vata is air contained in ether or space. So it moves like the wind. It's what controls the nervous system. It's what moves things around. And Vata is very changeable. It's very quick. It's very erratic. It stops and it starts. So this is a mental characteristic as well as a physical characteristic. We have to take the two combined. And so if we were to look at, from a lifestyle perspective, between 2 and 6 p.m., this Vata energy is more for everybody. So we want to introduce little changes, and we want to make them simple. We want to make them realistic. So let's say I'm working in an office 5 days of the week, Monday through to Friday. On those days, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to introduce certain lifestyle things that I could at the weekend, because at the weekend I'm going to have more time. But there are small things we can do. And for Vata, another important factor, it would be a consistency, like a routine. So if it is Monday to Friday between 2 and 6, and let's say I'm working in an office and I'm looking at a screen, which of course is going to aggravate Vata, it's going to stimulate the nervous system the more I'm looking at screens and on phones and this kind of thing. Maybe I factor in a 15-minute break away from my screen, away from my desk, where I can just take a short walk. Maybe it's outside of the office. Maybe it's an area within the office or outside the office that is more in nature. And I just sit and I'm in quietness for 15 minutes. So I'm not talking. So I'm bringing in more Kapha very easily just by doing that, which will help just balance a little bit the Vata. And it only has to be like 15 minutes between those times. And maybe we do it 4 out of the 5 days during the working week, if we're working Monday to Friday. And then at the weekend, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday, I could go for a short walk in nature, maybe half an hour. Not a power walk, not trying to achieve anything, but just being in nature. Or maybe I could take half an hour in the garden or an hour in the garden. Because working with the ground, of course, is no surprise. It's the opposite characteristic to Vata, which is up here. It's air contained in ether. It's up, more going on. Whereas the Kapha energy is working with the ground, and that will naturally start to balance that Vata energy at that time of the day. So that's a very, very simple way that you could look to balance, say, Vata during the Vata time of the day between 2 and 6. So that's more of a lifestyle thing. And if we looked at diet, what would be a similar characteristic to help ground this light, dry, erratic, changeable energy of Vata? So again, we're going to look at some of the characteristics that Kapha would provide to help balance that Vata between these hours of 2 and 6. So we could introduce snacks that are more grounded, a little, not so much dry. So there could be like avocado that we could have as snack. We could introduce things that are more Kapha in their nature, things like dates. Or we could soak nuts. So rather than have dry food and raw food, which is going to enhance Vata, we can bring in some other characteristics to that food to change it, to make it maybe warm or not so dry. Certainly no crisps or nuts we don't really want, but if you soak nuts, then it's different. So soaked almonds maybe, because then they become softer and easier to digest. Another important factor, at Vata time of the day, the digestive system isn't as strong. So we don't want to be eating dry, raw, uncooked. We want more grounding, warm and cooked kind of foods and snacks. And if it's nearer 6 p.m. when it's still more Vata coming into Kapha time of the day, maybe that's a time to have a lighter evening meal. Lighter, cooked and more grounded. So lighter in terms of not as much food. So it could be thick soups. But what kind of things could we put in the food? Well, root vegetables in season. And then we could have things like khichdi. And we could take a lesser amount of food. So these are very simple ways that we can start to factor in our lifestyle and our diet into these times of the day. And there's many other examples. If we were, say, working with the Kapha energy, which is the more grounded, slower energy, and if we took the morning between 6 and 10 when Kapha is more for everybody, then during this time would make sense to do our more aerobic exercise. So then straight away you're bringing in a balance to the more lethargic downward energy by bringing in some more Pitta and some more Vata. And likewise, if it was from a dietary point of view and we're looking at Kapha time of the day, then maybe you want to stimulate the digestive system a little bit and have some warm or hot ginger. Ginger is going to increase the fire a little bit in the digestive system, gets things going, which is the opposite to Kapha, which doesn't really want to get going so much. So these are very simple ways that we can look to introduce the things that we can change into the times of the day when we can't. And these are just very easy and supportive tips, if you like. So I hope that's useful. And I'll do a few more videos on these kinds of things, which just give a little bit more insight into how you can start to apply Ayurveda and cross that bridge between I know it, but how do I introduce it? And so there'll be more videos like this as well. So I hope this is useful, and thank you.